Right, we're on. So
Right.
let's kick on, and I suppose we best. Well, thanks to anybody that's actually watching this. Lee and I thought we'd record a little podcast on the importance of stage presence, presentation, what people are looking for regards to TANs and that presentation, and just
Yeah.
overall stage presentation really, and what to expect from photography and best practice. So probably at this point we should really give our credentials. So you probably don't need much introduction, Lee, but I'll let you go.
I'll go
Introduce
first then,
yourself.
yeah. Well, I'm Lee, and I started PhotoFlex in around 2009. And I originally started off photographing some food tech guys who were preparing for I think at the time it was the Universe, actually. And that was Ken Roscoe looking after those guys. And that's where it all kind of started. I was working at the time, but I wanted to do photography, and fitness photography, bodybuilding photography was first. And then from that, I sort of found my way into the NABBA side of things, because that's where they were competing. And I got to know Paul Jeffries and worked with the NABBA magazine. And that's really where it snowballed into working on the NABBA shows, and sort of getting in there. Because at first I just went with a camera and just did a couple of pictures of people I knew, which I don't really like people doing as such, but I did do a terrible job of it at the start, so I had to learn how to do it better. And that's where the bug came, because then I bought better equipment, learned how to do it, and then eventually they needed a photographer, so I was able to step in at the NABBA Northeast and get on with it, really. So it's been good since then, and I've been photographing NABBA Northeast for years. The NABBA Universe probably about 2 years after that. The Britain was a bit later after that as well, actually. Excuse me. And yeah, it's been good.
See, so I didn't realise that, Lee. To be fair, I know we've known each other a bit, but you were the food tech guy, so that would have been back then. Would that have been like Stu and?
It was the early days of Dave Titterton making his sort of taking on the Universe, and he was winning everything Class 1. There was Stuart Garrington, who was also on his way up the ladder. Dan Welburn had just won a novice that year. That was 2000. I think it was 2009 or 10. Dan Welburn won his novice class, and then he quickly progressed. I think it was 2010. And in that show, we had Drew Walker just doing the juniors. It was the beginning of quite a few people's bodybuilding career, really.
Was Ryan Thames in that group as well?
He wasn't in the group, but I think a year later, I think it was 2011 or 12, he went and won the Mr. International, and that was his sort of stepping stone into, the fitness world. So I think he was doing that first. Could be wrong, although he was training, obviously. And then that was his stepping stone into wanting to do more with his bodybuilding career, if you like, as a fitness model. And, he was on the cover of everything, wasn't he? So, yeah, he did really well.
Everybody you mentioned there has serious credentials and credibility, some of the guys are good friends of mine and yours. I think to establish again credibility, I think we've outdone that. And ultimately, where do I come into all this? So
yeah, exactly. You tell us about
20 years of been in around competitive bodybuilding with, again, good friends like Stu Garrington, we've mentioned there, Paul House back in the early days when we were knocking about with Kerry at the early days of CNP. So I've always that bug for bodybuilding. I've gone on, I've owned 3 gyms at different points. I've competed myself, not that I'm that good, but I've ended up ironically still involved on the tanning side of it, which is something I never envisaged doing, something I had no ambition to do. But through my now wife, which is how we met, I've ended up being a bit of an expert when it comes to tan. It's a bit odd now, because the first thing I look at on stage is what tan looks like rather than a physique. But that's sort of what we want to be doing anyway. We don't want to be looking at tans. We want to be able to see what the physique is there with continuity colour, not having to distract ourselves there. So we have with Muscle Tan, which is our product range. It's one of our product ranges. We do a lot. We don't just do competition tanning. We do all sorts of salon tans. I represent 2 big Australian brands in the UK and Europe. But Muscle Tan specifically, we are the official tanning partners of NABBA, the WNBF, UKUP, GPO. The sort of list goes on, and we know virtually everybody within that world. So it's an important part, and that's what we're here to talk about. So and photography. So where should we start, my old pal? Should we just go back to the England, which we've just come from this weekend? That's a good.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's delve into the importance, really. No matter what the stage is, and I suppose I'm going to think about it from a photography point of view. But the reason for my concern is, and I'm not going to knock any of the venues we work at, because sometimes these venues they can't change the lighting unless you rig a separate professional lighting setup, which costs a lot of money. Yeah. You've got to work with the lighting you've got, and sometimes they can't get up there to sort of change these lights. So you get what's called a hotspot on a stage. The NABBA England, if you're looking at the stage, the right-hand side was slightly brighter in one bit than the left. So if you was unfortunate enough to have too light a tan, which quite a few people did really, you would look really odd with the rest of the comparison group, if you like. And it was a bit of a shame. Obviously, luckily, they did move people about. So if you were there for one set, they'd put you at the other end, and then people could see you in better light, if you like. But
sorry, Lee, have we got a picture of that from the weekend? Because we can share that, which will be people will be able to see what we're talking about then.
Yeah.
If you've got one to, if not, don't worry about it. But if you've got one to hand, you should be able to share that full screen and point out what it is you actually mean there, because it was evident to see, wasn't it? And it's not restricted just to that venue. It happens all over. It's without the having a lighting engineer on hand to be able to change it. Some things just can't be changed. But we don't want to be lost and let that lighting wash out the physique or what's on the show.
Yeah, and it's a shame. But the good thing is, if you've got a good tan, whether the light's great or not, you're always on a win-win, if you know what I mean. Obviously, you look really dark if the light's crap, but, you know, I'd certainly rather have a good tan than not. I don't know if I can share a picture with you now or not. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, you should be able to share. If you've got one in your, if it depends on what computer you're on, if you've got one in there.
I'm on the phone for this. It's the phone. Last time we had a podcast, the computer didn't want to know, so I went on the phone, didn't I?
Right, okay.
I don't know if pointing at the computer, that might.
Well, just a second. Let me just go on, because I should be able to do this. I go on our Facebook, and you've put some already in there, haven't you?
Yeah, the comparison shots will probably give it away. The men's comparisons for the overall. What have I got? Comparisons. So overall, I mentioned Tim Rose was in there. So.
I mean, the importance of the colour. I mean, it's whilst you're reaching through that, it is. I mean, there's nothing worse personally than seeing a great physique poorly presented on stage to either a poor application of tan and not understanding what the depth needs to be, or poorly applied. I've got, if I pull that one up there, done. If I go, where am I? I should just be able to share screen, he says. Find it, it's in here somewhere. done. There we go, entire a tab, best one. There we go. That's it there, share. So, there we have it, Lee.
Yeah, I mean,
the
you've got
men's
something in
overall
there. So, where the second from the right is, that's where the hotspot user is, or where the guy on the end is. I mean, luckily their tan looks okay. It's dark.
Yeah.
But it was that side where if you had a light tan and you're in a comparison, you couldn't see any you couldn't see any muscle detail, any striations, anything.
Yeah, it's just lost. I mean, Tim's there, and he went back to what he knew, you know, which is fair enough. I get that, which was Dream Tan. He had a bit of what he's got there. I think I said this to him afterwards as well, because he's got phenomenal physique. Clearly, he won the overall there, but you can just see just how overly shiny. We'll come on to glaze in a bit and the right level of shine, but it doesn't allow him to show off just how good he is. He's got away with it there because he's that good. But there's if you look at to the left here where Gary is, Gary Chappell there, it's the difference is leagues for me. But these are the things, the small margins, and small margins make big differences when it comes to winning titles and championships, and
they do. I mean, Dream Tan is good if you're absolutely shredded, which he was actually on the day. But when you compare, it'd be nice to do a comparison, if it was ever possible, to do a Dream Tan versus a water-based and look at the difference. Like, you look so dry and peeled when it's a water-based tan. I've said it for years. And it's no offense to the Dream Tan owner, because, you know, obviously it's done some people good. But I just don't like the thick look it gives you, if you know what I mean. And you know, it worked on that day. But
he has. That's why it was used for so many years, right? Let's be fair, right? And I say this all the time in every conversation I have regarding tanning. This is never an assault on a product. It did a very good job for a very long time. You know, it was tried and tested and trusted by all of us. You know, I've worn it. Everybody I know who competed right the way through, that was our go-to. But science moves on, and it was never a perfect product, and obviously the transfer issues create problems. But a water-based in the right depth of colour, which is again going to be completely dependent on a person's skin tone, is always going to allow you to show off that detail better than something that's you're slicking on. It's a little bit like if you're heavily tattooed, as I am.
I was going to say that,
you want to cover tattoos or do any sort of a tattoo cover. I mean, I've used Dream Tan for that reason, because it will cover everything. But when you're putting anything on that's that thick or a makeup base, you are going to lose the condition, the striations under the skin. And I've got pictures of me just doing exactly that. It's just that thick topical application. I was chatting to Matt Taylor briefly yesterday, who won the over 45s, won the worlds. Obviously, he's getting ready for the Universe. And our conversations was actually, you know, if you're not quite in the level of condition that you could be, then Dream Tan maybe gives you a touch of an advantage, because it'll hide little bits for you as well. But it's the water-based solutions have moved on massively, and we're talking the two biggest are obviously Pro Tan, and there's nothing wrong with the colour of Pro Tan at all. It's done and trusted again globally, and then there's Muscle Tan, which is ours, which is exactly the same. But it's how we get up to being those right colours, and maybe for me, it's not just about colour; it's about making sure as an athlete that this isn't an afterthought. It isn't something that you just get to show week and think, oh, fucking hell, I need a tan. Anything will do, because it isn't that simple. Nothing. You can't just go down your local tanning salon and put a dark tan on. It won't do the job. These products are specifically formulated to do this job. Let me stop sharing that. Have we got? Trying to
thing
find it.
is, when Dreamtime was really popular, sort of 6-7 years ago, I'm thinking of mostly people were actually marked down for tattoos then.
Yeah,
And it was a known thing, and that started to phase out because tattoos became so popular. Many women had tons of tattoos, and I do think something changed in the criteria where they weren't really meant to mark people down for tattoos, piercings, all that kind of thing. Because in the modern world, a lot more people have tattoos and piercings, and that's
well,
when you didn't need that complete covered up kind of tan. But the problem with something that slips on is you don't get any contrast in like our normal skin tone would be. You know, like even though you've got fake tan on, it didn't have the same, like in the crevices. I don't know. It's just not the same as a tan that works with your shape, if you like, and the colour.
let me try and find a picture from the weekend. As you said, I'm looking there, right, and I'm looking at Tim's legs specifically, right, and he was peeled, was fair play to him, but he's lost that feathering that we all want to
That's
see.
exactly right. Yeah.
Dun 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 dun. Where are we? If I use this, I'm going to use this as an example here. Let me share that again.
Let's see if I've got anything I can show you. It was on a computer, probably easier, but.
Well, to be fair, mate, we've done this off the bat, haven't we? I had a chat the other day.
Yeah,
We should put some of these some of these bits and do a little bit more.
I think might be a good way to explain it would be. Was that last time, isn't it? Let's put this closer to the arch.
So if we can see this picture here, these bits of details, I mean, again, his condition was that good. He's pulled it off anyway. But you would have seen far more within this glute tie-in here, and again through the shoulder, the striations through the shoulders. It's and then he wouldn't have had the weird look that you get with that on your face. But it's come out of that. It's a funny one, isn't it? Because there's the conversations I generally have with people is can't be too dark. That's not right, because you can. You know, if you end up too dark, you have the same issue. You lose that quality, that muscle quality, and the definition that's in there. I've had a few of those this year, and it's just I avoid it because I just don't do it. If I'm doing the QC on it, then I know what colour we need to be on that stage. Usually we try and look at the lighting prior, but it's hard until you actually get an athlete up there, stage ready in a class to fully be able to see that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
we do generally know the colour that they need to be. I mean, there's the person I know needed to be darker, who's a good friend of mine, was Andrew Sharp. Andrew won the classic physique at the weekend, which was a phenomenal class for me. I thought it was one of the best of the day. But he was where are we? See if I can find it. He says. There he is. So I'll share this again. This is when he uses this as an example of nearly but not quite. And I did the tan, so I'm critiquing my own work here, right?
Yeah.
So that was Andy there. Again, phenomenal physique in classic. Just, I mean, some people would think that looks all right. I'm a perfectionist. I knew when he left our tent that I told him at the time, I said, we need to do let's see how it develops over the next 20 minutes. Because once you've applied solution, it continues to develop, even when you've done base tans. And the depth of coat. So come back, we'll put another light coat on top just to bring it to its depth, the right depth. And then the show just motored quickly. It didn't happen, but it wasn't an issue. Like I say, he's won the class. He's qualified for the Universe. Worth pointing out here, he's a natural athlete, which blows my mind completely. But yeah, it
I
just
thought the
that
tan was
touch.
good, to be honest. And even looking at that picture now, the tan looks good to me.
It's I mean, got to say, right, it's there, but it just, with an extra light layer, it would have just been that touch darker for him, and we would have got a little bit more in. You see in the quads here, that quad separation would have come through slightly better. Glaze, we were talking about this the other day.
Yeah. A lot of people were bone dry on stage, but in the same sense, they weren't given the time either, because the show progressed a bit quicker than they expected. So when people thought they had an hour, they were told they've got 3 minutes, which was unfortunate, to be honest. It's just sort of tough. You've got to get on with it. Which, the show has to go on, but the athletes are the show, so they probably should just said, let's have 5 minutes, put some music on, and like they've done at some other shows, talk to audience a bit, talk about the universe, the UK, then bring them on, buy a bit of time so that everyone comes on stage happy. Because the one person I know of, I did a shoot with him Monday, he was given 3 minutes, and by the time he come on stage, he was stressed, unhappy, and it's just not fair. They're there to compete, and everyone really should be able to, especially if it's not their fault. If they're late, then that's different. But if they're ready and waiting, and all of a sudden they're told you've got to be ready in 3 minutes, and they're trying to get some sugar in while they get changed, no one should really have to rush like that. But it sort of happened, and that's it. So yeah, some people were bone dry, and the light can't go anywhere. It's absorbed straight into the skin. You don't get, like Andrew on screen there, you can see the light bouncing off his quad, off his tricep, shoulder, chest, and all the little, all the abs has got the lucky stud. So, this is why a bit of shine's helpful. No jealousy there at all,
It's a conversation that's been more apparent this season than ever before with regards to glaze.
Yeah.
There's this thing again about being too dark and over glazing as well. Too shiny is not a good look. I say argument. I definitely had this topical debate with people about putting too much on. You put too much on, you're going to have the same problem. You know yourself. You're there taking the pictures, Lee, and the light's bouncing everywhere, and you're not showing off the detail. Again, when I glaze our athletes who've been prepped by us, it's literally shoulders, chest, touch down the arms, quads, back and hamstrings. But it's like, I mean, we've swapped that this year. We've always used like a spray, or we have done for the last few seasons, like an olive oil based spray. It's very, very good. And then we brought out this one, which is again muscle glaze. It's weirdly, it's better on the guys than the girls. The girls are really good with the spray, but this is light. It's still oil based, but it's designed to work with the product. So I think it gives a really good finish, just enough shine, not too much. And
that's the key. I think it's used in moderation. You put too much on, it's like when people put it on for shoots and there's a patch of it on their arm that's not been rubbed in. Now, when the light hits that, it'll look like a really bright patch, and that's going to be the same on stage. So you need that. If it's going to go on, you've got to rub it in really well. Even though, like in normal light, it doesn't look like there's any glaze on there or any shine or oil or anything. But as soon as the light hits it, it's there, and that's when you've got it right. Like you say, you don't need a lot. You put it on, rub it in really nice, and it just makes everything pop. So I think it's crucial.
Well, what we're trying to do with it is ultimately highlight the areas we want to highlight, right? So, we want to bring abs and chest clearly, quads. We don't want to. If we put too much in all over the areas, you're not going to extenuate those areas like you'd like to. If you throw it on everywhere, you just look a shiny mess. And I've seen that done generally by people. People haven't come to us. You've got a friend or whatever doing it, and the glaze is going everywhere, and just look like come out a bath of baby oil, which might be good on other things. It's not great on stage, is it?
No. I think the ladies don't need quite as much everywhere. Like you say, shoulders, arms, glutes, a little tiny bit, and the quads. But ladies don't need loads of it because it can look sweaty, you know what I mean, and wrong. Guys, I think definitely need it. Like obliques, serratus, that kind of thing. Like you say, you don't need to be caked in it. Just enough so when if they're in a certain pose and the light hits it, it just highlights the pronounced bits, you know, and the shadowy bits stay shadowy. It's perfect.
Well, again, that's a great shot of yours there of Andy. I think that basically emphasises everything we're saying. All the right areas are there. Again, I think he needs to be a bit darker, but I've told him this, and he will be, and that's down to me and nobody else. But he still looks phenomenal. The shot's great, the lighting's spot on, and it's an example of probably how it should be done. So
that is good, yeah. Because I know Andrews, he's not a dark person anyway. He's not like a massive sunbed user from what I get. I have to follow his Instagram. He's always quite not pale, you know. He's a Scottish fella, and you know, he's not a massively tan person in the off season. So to get that tan, obviously, it's going to take probably a bit more work than somebody who's got either a natural tan or whatever, you know. So he looked good on stage, and obviously his posing was perfect, and he looks happy, didn't he? So that's the key thing.
He's probably the most. I'm good friends with Andrew. We do obviously with the tanning partner at WNBF. Andrew's one of the presidents of WNBF. He's a great athlete. He's a doctor in sports science, sports nutrition. He's a clever guy. Yeah. Probably the most uncomfortable I've ever seen him. Coming into an open show, well, that takes guts as well. Yeah, he's Scottish. He's very pale naturally. It's the first time in all the time I've known him actually tanning, because he's not competed for a couple of years, and he had the plan here was to do the England, qualify for the Universe. He's got the Worlds out in Germany this weekend, then the uni, something else, and he was. So the way our product is designed, it's designed to be layered up. So we do. Our base tans are done the day before, right? Which you know is a pain in the neck. It's a pain in the neck for everyone. The reason you do that is to give yourself this nice base. It's like a primer, if you like, that you can build your tan up from again there. If you come in and trying to get it all done on the day, and you are, say, Andrew's colour or Rab's colour, and Rab couldn't be any more white or Scottish. You know, his name's Rab, he's ginger, and he was virtually see-through on the Saturday. It just doesn't get, because it hasn't had time to develop.
No.
And it isn't going to sit as dry. Whereas, again, done the day before, it's had that time to develop. It's got a nice base. If you do sweat, it doesn't show as much because you've already got that colour underneath. And then you build your tan up way to where you want it to be. So it might be one coat. Usually it is just one coat of muscle tan on top of the muscle tan base coat. And then if you need a bit more, you go 2, or if a bit more, 3. I mean, I've never had to do any more than that, to be honest. Because of how good the solution is. You don't need to lather it on. If you're stood in a tent being spray tanned, right, and it's sticky and wet, and it's taking you ages to dry, that's down to poor application. And I say that because I know it happens. You don't want to be stood around, you know, just waiting, drying up. If you do it lightly, it dries quickly, and you can get to where you need to be and much faster, and it doesn't feel tacky. It just doesn't feel. You know, if you've ever had one done, which I don't know, I'll happily treat you to that next time I see you if you want, pal.
I've actually not had one. No, I did a different process back in 2010, which was I think it was a Jan Tanner base tan, which was horribly red. Yeah, and then I tried some Dream Tan, which I hated because I'm trying to get into poses and my thumbs were slipping. I mean, I weren't great anyway, but you know, it's not the point. I'm sure I'll get shredded if you went for the Dream Tan. Yeah, it made me look easy as stone over way, you know. But no, I went down that road. But the Jan Tanner was actually, it didn't look bad on it because that was water based. So on its own, the day before, I looked all right, apart from being really skinny. And you know, that's what everyone was using back then. Because I was at that point, I really loved the Olympia, and they only had water-based tans. Everyone looked see-through, peeled. You know, they didn't have Dream Tan in that Federation. It was banned as it was in the UKBFF at the time.
Still is.
But yes,
It's
I've never had a spray tan. And a lot of people do when they come for shoots. You know, they go for a basic spray tan, which is you could walk about kind of tan, and it's not always dark enough for a shoot, but it's not bad. It's better than nothing.
So, well, if with that in mind, right, you've let yourself in for this, because if we're doing the universe in a couple of weeks, yeah, and if you're there on the Friday, then guess what you're getting. So I'll happily spray you, mate. I'll bring a light. You look phenomenal, trust me. Spray for photo shoots. I mean, just it was the lad you photographed on Monday. Great kid. I said kid. And that was he'd have gone and washed that off, and you sent me one of the pre-edited shots of that just to show how good the tan looks. It's always going to sit well for that. It's normal when you come to photo shoots. You still need. I mean, you still need that darkness, don't you, mate? If I'm right, you still need that in. We do
because most shoots, my shoot setup involves probably 3 or 4, 5 lights. You know, there's not just one. There's all. I've got lights everywhere. There's above, below, sideways, and I'm throwing a lot of light at this, and I want the light to hit sort of the peak of the shoulders, the top of the chest, the bicep, all that kind of thing. And if someone's a bit too, I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. If someone turns up with a bad tan, I can work with the light, and I can change it to suit them as such. But shooting it how I want to shoot it, it's better if they've got a good tan. And obviously, we do put some oil on or some glaze or something. And again, it's to the point where you can't see the glaze when they're stood in the gym. But as soon as the light hits, it's phenomenal how it reacts. And when Zam came on Monday, he was still tan from the show. And to be honest, it worked out great. He didn't need any more tan. We did he brought some oil and he put that on, looked great. And, he had a certain look he wanted, which involved sort of overpowering the light in the gym. So we had very little ambient light, lots of power from the flashes. And that was easier simply because he had a good tan. And that's it basically. It does work. But when I don't notice it with stage shots, but when I'm doing shoots closer up, if you like, I notice, and this has nothing to do with Zam, I notice people who have not prepared the whole body. Because I know you do a thing about skin prep, but I've said it a million times before. People should be really preparing the skin probably weeks in advance of a tan. I know I wouldn't. I do. And in a sense, exfoliating with stuff that doesn't react badly with the skin, really get rid of all the dead skin cells, have nice fresh skin. And I've noticed on a few different shoots, people don't exfoliate the inside of their arm because it's quite a soft piece of skin compared to a rougher skin on the outside. So that's normally when you get patchy tan. And it's not your fault, it's just the way after the show the tan comes off. Do you know what I mean?
It's how it's how it adheres to the skin. So
it adheres different to dry old skin, doesn't it, than it does new skin, because it's designed for fresh skin, isn't it? So
basically, if I get this wrong, then Mrs. Caine will probably shoot me because she is the skincare expert, not me.
Oh yeah.
So the reason we're doing it, we're exfoliating prior to putting tanning solution on, is it like it's just rightly said, it removes dead skin cells, leaving a nice fresh layer of skin for the product to adhere to. It then sits underneath the dermis, and that's how it clings to our skin. And if we've got dry patchy areas there that are unmoisturized, that's when you end up with this patchy, because it's not catching like it should do, which is why we exfoliate first. We use a water-based moisturizer, because if we use an oil-based moisturizer, most people don't realize actually dries your skin out more.
All right.
It's bizarre. You wouldn't think that. But yeah, these are the things I've learned now. So I've worked within the skincare and beauty world. So just something that's light and water based will just balance the skin better than an oil based one. And clear. And if it's oil based, Yeah, anything oil-based as well can stop it clinging like it should do. So,
Yeah,
but skin prep, skin prep's clearly important. Where the challenges come from an athlete perspective is if you're doing back-to-back shows,
yeah,
you know, one weekend, the other weekend, and these things take about a week to 10 days to fully come off. If you're doing back-to-back shows, then that's not going to happen. Different solutions have clearly different ingredients. There's the biggest one, or the biggest issue I find here is other products are fully synthetic. So the other big tanning brands out there are a fully synthetic product where their ingredients are chemical-based. That doesn't stop it does a great job, but when you're drying agents or things like acetone, that is going to dry your skin out. Like it's just it's going to make the solution dry really quickly, which is what you want. But at the same time, the after effect of that is it dries the skin. When you're already dehydrated, then it's going to obviously rip your moisture out left, right, and centre. Ours doesn't do that. Ours is a natural based product. Everything in it's natural. All the ingredients are, and the drying agents, witch hazel, it's just a lot softer on the skin. So people tend to find if you've been back to back and you've been in muscle tan, you don't end up with those patchy bits. You see it with athletes where they've done it usually in their legs, in their arms, definitely on the back of the hands.
Under there. This area popular under there for some reason because it's not a place you'd naturally. It's quite soft. People don't exfoliate the soft areas.
Yeah, but it's also you're always rubbing. If you've got a t-shirt on, those bits are always going to rub you. Again, these little tiny bits, but again, if you're back to backing, you can use a tanning razor. Don't really become effective until after 4 days of having a tan on, but that will help remove any leftover tan quicker.
Yeah,
quickest way of doing it, mate. If you're ever thinking I need to get this off, is just jump in a hot tub with some chlorine in. It whips tan off within seconds. I mean, what was I going to say to that? I mean, it's going back to like studio shoots. Is there ever a point where someone's turned up and they've had a spray tan, it's not dark enough, or whatever it is? Can it be really detrimental to what you're shooting, or the point being, it's just not going to get as good an image as you should do?
Yeah, definitely. Quite a few times people turn up pretty much, they think they've had a tan, but they must be absolutely ghostly white because they turn up with a tan, which they obviously are a bit more tan than normal, but it's still way paler than the average person, never mind somebody having a photo shoot. And I think the problem is when you're in a normal environment, it probably does look fairly dark to them. And it didn't, to be fair, but to them it might do. And if they're in a poorly lit place where they're getting tanned and they think it looks dark, it's like when you step outside, we all look ghostly white outside because it's so bright and everything. And there's times when I have struggled a little bit, but like I say, I adapt the lighting to be even more harsh. So it's got no choice but to bounce over the muscles. But it's just, it's a shame, you know. And without having something there, like I say, we need to tan you up, sort of thing. It is a bit of a problem. Right, I tell everybody I do a bit of a shoot prep guide, if you like. I normally tell them what to expect, what to do. I always recommend a tan. I recommend if they're coming out of a show to not really touch the tan. And if depending on what the product they've used, they might need to touch up some areas because different products work differently. And that's kind of my guide, you know. The tan's a priority.
So to put my 10 benefit on that, so if you've come off the back of a show, let's say you've done the Universe in a couple of weeks, you've been tanned by us in Muscle Tan, you were being photographed by you on the Monday or the Tuesday, you could quite happily go home, wash that tan off, and Monday, Tuesday, you will have a dark enough tan for you to shoot. It won't be an issue.
Yeah.
It tends to it's extremely good for that. We've got some new products out this year. Like I said, we've got glaze, we've got a home application base tan kit, which is the same as our base tan solution. That's going to change a lot for people. But we've also got a topical application of Flex Gold, so it's the same color, but you can just rub it on. We've got some of it. I think this is the sample of it, right? It's a bit like dreams. It's in the fact that you can take this. You know, if you've got somebody who needs to touch in, you just take it and rub it in and blend it, and you'll get the colour you need. It's you know, just in those those last minute touch ups you need to do. There's little bits.
Places it's rubbed off and
it doesn't go. It doesn't destroy stuff. So if I rub that down my desk there, you got a little bit, but it doesn't really take it's not as thick as Dream Tan. It's not as oily. It's just a topical application that's really there to touch in or finish off if you've got those last minute bits and you're not being looked after by a professional spray tan team.
Did you ever come backstage at sort of Southport when Universe and Britain were at Southport? Did you ever come backstage and see all the plastic sheeting lining the walls, the toilet walls? Oh my God! It was like a scene from Dexter. You know, it's like a proper. It was the weirdest thing to see. How they got all this plastic? I mean, it obviously needed because nearly everyone had Dream Tan on. Plus, I guess if they didn't, they still got the oils. And a lot of venues wouldn't let them do bodybuilding shows for that reason. So their thing was, you go into the toilet and it's like lined with plastic, and it's like, what the? And the venue's a bit different now. It's not so bad, but God, that was unreal.
You don't tend to have the same issues. So again, I can talk from understand experience with this. One as an official tanning partner, because when we're working with a venue, with certain venues, we have to sign an agreement there, and that anything that's damaged or done that we take responsibility for, we'll put right or we'll pay damages. You know, that's why when you've got people in areas that are using things like Dream Tan, and that they're not going to be as careful. They don't care. They've not signed an agreement that could cost you $3 or $4 grand. And we have had that. York University. We know the guys there really well. Again, we had an area set up there, and then the people with Dream Tan down the walls and Pro Tan for the same things. And then they're trying to charge us for the cleanup of it. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, we're not responsible for that. That's down to other athletes, and it's down to. That's why a lot of them have continued to ban it. There's again the York bodybuilding show, which was like a regional. It was on for years. It was a fantastic show. They used to, for years we had it in like the Joseph Roundtree's theatres, which was a good theatre, and they banned it. They banned the bodybuilding shows. This is going back. This would have been like early 2000s because of that problem. And this year was the first year since that a bodybuilding show has gone on in there, which was the UKUP show. They use our product because you just don't have those problems. If we get stuff on the floor, if I spill a bottle of solution on the floor, I just get carpet cleaner out, comes out straight away. You just don't have those problems.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? The science moves on. We keep pushing the boundaries. There's development for solution always going on. So you've got things like we have a tan lock. If you're a heavy sweater, right? I'm a heavy sweater, regardless of condition. I just sweat. I'm probably sweating right now. And solutions topical. So it adheres. And the whole point of the base tans is it adheres, it develops. And if you've been home, you've rubbed it, you've been in bed, it's going to rub off. It's not going to destroy anything, which is a bonus. And then, but anything that's put on the day is a topical application. There's a little bit of development, but ultimately you're going to go home and wash that off anyway. So if you're sweating heavily, clearly that has got to go somewhere. It's going to run.
Yeah.
So things like a tan lock, which will help lock that in. Brad was a great example of that. I think at the weekend, we won the class 3.
Yeah,
he was. He'd done the PCA and he'd done his tan himself, and it had just not looked. I haven't seen the pictures, but he said it was awful. And he was obviously marked down for that presentation. He was told by the judges that his presentation wasn't where it should be, which is why he come to us. He was very pale. The base tans looked brilliant. Went on. Top coats went on fantastic. Looked superb leaving, and he looked great on stage. I've seen your shots. I think I'll pull one up. But then he was, I mean, they were up there a long time doing the comparisons in that class. I think it was 8.5 minutes in total. And I was stood at the side of the stage, and I could see like the sweat pouring off him. And it was obviously the tan's going to run at that point. It looked worse from the back than the front. We've seen your shots, and he looked more than all right. But we need to, when we've got something like that, I'm always about, let's find the right solution. What can we do? Let's get some tan on in the week, like a mousse, start to build his colour up a little bit better. Because this is the last thing, you know, we said it at the start of this video, and we'd probably just waffle on a bit, but this shouldn't be an afterthought. This has to be part of your process, right? At the end of the day, your tan is the thing that's going to show off your physique on that stage. Every training session you've done, every sacrifice, all those fucking nights out or social events you didn't go to in the build up to this, right? This is the final piece of the puzzle. You know, there's nothing more. I'll use this one. This is the overall, which I generally thought, right, when I saw him in the overall, and I asked him afterwards if he'd had a shower. But clearly, he still carried on sweating, and So this is Rab on the far end here, and to be fair, he looks for what I thought he looked like. He looks all right there.
He does look good, yeah. Like he's not like a bit darker. He probably stand that even. Well, would definitely stand that even more.
Well, when he did his class, he went on and he looked bang on. It was just he was obviously on there a long time, and he was sweating heavily. He said to me afterwards, he said, "I've never sweated as heavily as this, Phil." I was like, it was warm up there, and they worked them. They did work the guys.
They did work them,
But it's like with him coming into it, if I haven't spoken to him this week, but if he's doing the uni, then I'll get a mousse out to him, get him build that up over a couple of nights. Because he can't go on a sunbed, right? He said, I go near a sunbed, there's 3 minutes, and I'm like red crisp. But we'll build that up on him. We'll do the base tan coats that we always do, which is only two coats. You don't need to do any more. Anything more than that, a waste of time. And then come show day, I'll put 2 or 3 coats on him, 2 light ones to the colour that he was, and then I'm going to tan lock him in, and make sure that that doesn't slip. Or if he's sweating as heavily, it doesn't move as much on his back as I thought it did. Again, I'm my own worst critic because I am methodical about what we're doing out there. We do take a lot of pride and responsibility, you know.
What's the transfer like? You know, if someone's done a show and they go back to the hotel room, does it rub off? I mean, obviously they just shower off the topical coating, and then they're not going to get it on the bed sheets and towels and stuff. I assume. No,
once you've showered that off, you've just got a nice tan. It looks like you've been in Caribbean for 3 weeks. It's a really nice. You know, these things are developed from our salon ranges. That's you know. So we at the end of it, you want people to be able to think, well, I'll look all right here. I don't really need to get rid of it, you know. It doesn't transfer like that. And even like base tan done the day before, you go home, it's going to transfer onto your sheets, it's going to transfer onto your clothes, a little bit of rubbing, as it does with any spray tan, by the way. Any spray tan you got, you put on loose clothing, the looser and lighter the better. And you'll always get a little bit. But the point being is that you throw that in the wash, it comes off.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I know people who've travelled for shows, and they've had to take their own bedding with them just in case, because obviously they've gone down the other route, and so they've had their own towels, their own sheets to make sure they don't touch anything in the hotels, because the hotels were charging people, and they do often like they want like a clean fee, or you damage the sheet, towel, whatever. And that was one of people's concerns. So they're having to go to the efforts of taking all this extra stuff to protect the beds and the shower, the towels and all that. Whereas it's better if you don't have to, isn't it? You just rinse it off. A little bit of transfer, not going to bother an hotel, I don't think. Plus, if it's washing off, everyone's happy, aren't they?
It was standard, wasn't it? Right. So when we used to do Southport, and we've been with enough of our pals there to see them compete. It was you had to the guest houses and the hotels mandated that you brought your own guest sheets. You know, because you'd put a layer of dream tan on the night before, and then clearly anything it touches, it pretty much destroys.
Yeah, exactly.
And there was people banning people from staying because they didn't want the damage that come with it, which is ultimately it's not good for bodybuilding. That, and I know people have changed venues and changed where locations are for those reasons, but again, we've moved on there. And these things don't have to happen anymore. You know, you should be able to, in my opinion, this is something that you shouldn't think of. You should think about as in regards to this is part of the process. This is going to be part of the expense of competing because it's not a cheap sport and none of us get paid for it. It's a bit of right. So, but don't come to the end of it and think, oh, I can save a few quid here. Right? You might as well not bother. You're doing yourself of everything you've put in, but come that point, you should be able to put your faith and your trust in whoever the official tanning partner is to let them present you on stage the way you should be. Now, clearly, I can only speak for myself because I only do this because I still love bodybuilding and I want to see people show off the work and the graft and what they've done. And it isn't something that you should just be leaving to chance. Get on with it. And make sure that you get to do what you want and get the result that you want. You know, it's right. I think let's talk about cost. And I'm conscious we're cracking on here, but cost of tanning, right? We know is not cheap. If you look across the board for a competition tan, it tends to. And we're slightly the lower side, 75, 80, depending on where we are, up to 100. 120 with glazing some things. I think they're the Two Bros ones. You know, that's an expense. But I think what people, I know it's not an excuse in trying to explain why some of these expenses are there. You know, if we've got the solution's not cheap anyway, right? So a litre of muscle tan's £120 a litre, right? So it ain't cheap, and that'll do 8 to 10 tans and base coat, depending on how big the athlete is. Then you've got all your traveling costs, all the staffing costs, because if you're working for us, you've been trained by us. We won't sell muscle tans to people that haven't been trained by us because we need to know that it's been done right at the end. That's the important part. The girls, you know, we pay them well. We don't. It's not a cheap thing to come and do. It's hotel costs that come into that as well. Venue hire as well the day before. All these things add up, and then I think the one thing we probably do differently to a lot of people is the revenue that does come off the back of it. We proportionally split up with the federations and the promoters that we're working with to make sure that these monies go back into promoting and making the athlete experience better, the shows better.
Yeah. Well, you sponsored England, didn't you?
Yeah, we sponsor. So we're classed as a sponsor for everything we do because of the amount of money that goes back in from what we do. But it's my big bugbear with people that have been doing this historically was that they were taking out and not putting back. You know, there is good money, there's good revenue out of it, but when you're walking away from a show having pocketed that, some people say that's just good business. And yeah, fair enough, but there
is that side of it, Phil. And you know, a business is a business at the end of the day. However, I think the difference between some businesses and other businesses is it's the customer service. It's the fact that someone can get hold of you the day of the show, after the show, before the show. You know, like just for example, Monday, I must have loads of phone calls Monday because some people are trying to pay, and because they got the postcode wrong, the bank card was failing. But I answer the phone straight away, you know, and that's the thing. I was busy, but I'm still answering the phone. And same with you. It's we're in it to make money, but I feel like we also give back a lot. And I try and do quite a lot for NABBA, like poster design, and I work closely with Paul quite a lot for his show. Yeah. I've got sponsors for him before, because why shouldn't we? You know, I even give away a prize, you know, a photo shoot for I think it was the overall presentation winner or something. But sometimes another thing, sometimes do a show we don't make much money. Earlier in the year, the turnout was so low. By the time I'd driven to Birmingham and put fuel in, parking, my lunch, then I've got a day to process the images. The pay was really low, but if you photograph the show, you photograph the show. That's the commitment you make. I don't just pick and choose the busy shows. I'm there photographing every single athlete, whether it's going to be busy or not. And that's just how it's got to be. And sometimes you might make a better wage, sometimes you make a really poor wage. That's just how it is, isn't it?
That's just how it goes, mate. We've had that this year. We know we have. It's you still got to be there. You still got to turn up, even if you're making a loss. We're never letting people down.
Exactly.
And I think there's when we talk about the service that you provide within that and the importance of it. I think personally, I've done shows where I haven't bought the pictures, and I massively regret that, because I don't think I bought the pictures from any shows I've done, because I was never happy with how it looked.
Yeah,
and that's not. I'm getting on a bit further now, and I massively regret it, because having that professional eye, right, capturing those images and those pictures, 10 years on, I wish I had them to look back on and go, I did that, and I come second, but it was I still pulled through it. Maybe I should have got first. I think for anybody competing, that's maybe starting out, it's one piece of advice from me is get those professional shots, get that documentation, get that memory of what you've done, because no one's taking that away off you ever again. You were there, you did it, you put it in, and you will come a point you want to look back at them and appreciate everything you did to get there. Like I say, I desperately wish I got mine. And you want to make sure that is what, Lee?
There's still really good value. I've always tried to be more about appreciating the cost of preparing for a show, because I've been there, done it, but working with people, I know it's expensive. I still need to make a wage, but I also know that a lot of people are getting towards being skinned. You know what I mean? Food and travel and all that.
What's the cost these days?
Well, I always do a pre-sales 2 weeks before a show, so you can pre-order your photographs, and people then panic when they read it, think, because I've had emails like, I want to pre-order my photos so that you take my picture. The key thing people need to know is I take everybody's photograph, whether they pre-order or not, whether they end up buying the photos or not. So if there's 70 people in the show, I photograph everybody's routine, the comparisons a lot, regardless of whether they're going to buy them or not, because I need to have those pictures. NABBA need them, and I need them, and we've just sent some off to the Beef magazine. But my thing has always been, I know I could probably charge what I wanted because I'm the only person taking the pictures, but that's not how it works. I can remember years ago, I'm going back probably 8 years, and I'm probably charged about £20 at NABBA at the time, and I covered a show for another photographer. I won't mention him, but he only does a certain federation, and it's quite I don't know how to describe it, but it's quite fancy, you know what I mean? And he said, you've got to charge him 50 quid, because that's what I charge him. And I'm like, I can't do it. He said, you'll make a load of money, and I'm away. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. I still charged less. He weren't happy, but I couldn't charge 50 quid. And I know that there's places, there's other federations, because I know like Fivos is still really fair, and there's a couple of other guys who are still the same sort of mindset of, it's not all about getting as much as you can. We've got to be fair with the athletes, and they're still in the ballpark figure of where I am. But I know there's other fed. I think Two Bros is like 60 to 80 quid or something for photos, but you might get a video in it. So mine's 27.50 as a pre-sale, and it goes up to 32.50 after the show, and that has gone up about 150 this year, simply because it's basically costing us all more money to get places. You know what I mean?
It's not a massive increase, is it? £1.50.
I'm happy at that, if you know what I mean. And but 27.50 if you pre-book, that's like your quarter turns, your comparisons, your routine. If you're lucky enough to get into the overall, you get those as well. If you do anything else, if there's no extra cost. If you're on and off stage, you get more pictures for the same price. If you're in loads of comparisons, like the Universe, they do tend to do a lot. If you're doing well, you're up there, so you're absolutely panting and you're on your arse. So you get all those comparisons. I think one of the guys from the show on Sunday, he had his class. It was a lot of comparisons. He did a really good routine. Then he was in the overall. There was 100 odd images, probably 130 images for 27.50. It's when you break it down per picture for an high-res picture, it's cheap. And some of these people, the coaches, and they've got PT, they can use them for that. They've bought the picture. It's no big deal. And I've sent some to NABBA England, who does the trunks for people, and everyone benefits from it. They got a nice high-res image of yourself, whether you've won or not. It's motivational. It's great, isn't it?
It's win, lose, whichever. So I think that bit should become irrelevant when you're looking at your pictures. You should be able to have a look back and again, mark the moment of being on that stage. Look at the competition that you're up there with, regardless of your result. Critique yourself at the same time. And look, I could need to work there. I want to be, need to bring that bit up or whatever that
might be. Amazing, but it's got beat by somebody better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I just, there is a huge importance in that. Like I say, we put so much time, effort, work getting up there. I think what you do is exceptional value, to be fair. That's in this day and age, especially with how the cost of living's gone up, that's not a lot of money to spend. As people don't see, like I say, all the work getting in there, getting to the shows, being there the day before, setting up.
No.
Obviously, you're photographing everybody. It's not just sat there taking pictures of people that paid you. And then it's the editing work that goes in afterwards. I'm not a photographer. I have a bit of an understanding through working with great guys like yourself, Viv, and you're like, how many fucking images? You've got to go through how many? And get it right and put that professional eye on it to make sure that the athlete at the end of it's getting the best pictures that they could possibly get of their day and their time on stage. So it's professional value, really.
It is, yeah. And you just got to do it and love it as well, and people don't see the work behind the scenes, Phil. Really, they don't see the extra. They just think we're making loads of money, which we're not actually. When I did the last Universe I did, because somebody was talking to me from, I don't know which, but I ended up dropping my main big lens and broke it. And that cost me 250 quid. I did claim on my insurance, but I had to pay the £250 excess. That £250 come off my profit for that day.
That's
I didn't go to NABBA saying, I'm at your show, I need some money back. I didn't overcharge anybody else to cover the cost. You take the cost because that's the risk in anything. I insure the tools in case that happens. It did happen. And I am quite clumsy as well. I've dropped it before on gym shoots, which was my fault. I've had to cover the cost then as well. But that's me. That's just putting the. I learned not to put the camera on a bench and then turn and talk to someone anymore. I put it somewhere else. But I'm clumsy at the end of the day. But the Universe thing wasn't necessarily. It was somebody else distracting me, and it happens. But it's still going on. Everyone's still got the photo took. I had spares, I always have some backups and spares and all that kind of thing. There's the 2 pro bodies and lenses and big bag full of tricks when I go to a show, as well as a bag full of food. And it's just what we do, Phil. I think, but sometimes question my sanity when we, like you say, long days. I was up at 6 a.m. Monday morning to start processing show orders. And that's all I did that day. Actually, that's a lie. So I got up at 6 a.m. Then I went to a photograph exam. Back in the office to finish off. Tuesday morning up at 6 a.m. to finish them. It's like you're just saying at the beginning of the video. I don't know if we were live at the time, but how exhausting you sometimes feel after such a busy weekend.
I think with what people don't see the work that goes in behind the scene. That'd be from your point of view as a photographer, being judges or the the promoters, you know, everything that goes into putting a good show on. There's a lot goes on behind the scenes there. The tanning teams, all of them, you know, we know the guys from Get Bronze are good friends of ours. It's they're the first people there and the last to leave. It's the most unglamorous job in bodybuilding, and those days are brutal. You know, if you're these a gun will weigh 4 kilos when it's full of solution, our M400s, and that's a lot of front delt raises, a lot of knees.
Yeah.
It's, and we did the WMBF. We did 140 athletes. I could have done with an extra member of staff for that, but we did 8 hours solid. 8 hours solid tanning. I'm getting old. It took me a full week to recover after that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, they don't see you missing don't get a proper lunch, don't get to have a drink. You know, it's well, we made the choice and we just get on with it, don't we? But yeah, that's a lot of tans.
It was a lot. What do you think? 2 coats per person. And then the top coats on top of that. So it's a lot of graft, and the guys are only there to make sure you look right. It's we were lucky. I find everybody chose to be very respectful and appreciative, and you know, they all go out looking the way they should.
Yeah,
that's the matter. Yeah,
are you at the UK?
Of course. Indeed, that's the last show of the season for us. So we're both at the Universe, aren't we? Next weekend.
Yeah.
Then I've got the GPO, Battle of Britain, which is another great federation on the up. Good, again, nice people. I'm good people involved with a proper love for bodybuilding, you know,
awesome.
And that's the thing. And then we've got Mr. Jeffrey's UK show, which is one of my favourite shows.
Absolutely.
Of all the bodybuilding shows we do.
It's going to be a good show, to be honest. I think we might have a couple dropping from the Universe.
Definitely. We've already got lads telling us we're doing it from the use of Booker's in for UK, Phil. He's again, last one of the year. He's a great show. He's a great promoter. The trophies are next level. He cares and loves it. He's the same as us. Where everyone involved's got a real love for bodybuilding. Which is paramount, and the athlete experience, making sure everyone gets that right time on stage and make sure there is an experience. That's the main thing. So we probably should wrap this up as we've been on here an hour, mate. And we've
last thing, Phil. At the Universe, I'm going to try and go do like a quick live. I went live last week at the England. I didn't see you guys, though, so I didn't get a chance to find where you were tanning. But I'm going to go live again at the Universe before the show starts, and so I'll hopefully try and find you at least. And I think I know where you'll be though there. And Luke's staying at UK as well.
So Universe, I can tell you for now, we're tanning in the hotel, which is it the George? I can't remember. Hotel next to it.
Road,
yeah, we're all in there. That's the easiest way, and then I'll have myself or Sarah or one of my team members glazing and repairing, making sure everyone's spot on backstage again. So yeah, that's where we are. The UK is different again. We know where we are in the UK. We're in the venue the day before. We're in Pudsey House. But yeah, we'll find that, because like I said, I rang you Monday, and I was like, I hadn't seen him. I didn't even catch you yesterday. And then here we are now doing the same thing. So we'll try and get some good content for people, and try and do some backstage interviews at the UK
that'd be really
people.
Good, though. Yeah, I think that'd be brilliant to do that again.
If it's something I've been trying to do all year. I was going to do it at the WMBF. I was too tired. Then the UK didn't quite. Someone was supposed to be doing it anyway. But I'm going to do it for our athletes. Everyone's getting tanned by us, because it's always a good chat, and we've got some great banners this year, and it looks good, doesn't it? There's some people want to see that after. Anyways. Photo shoots, just one last thing. If someone wants to book a photo shoot with you, what's the cost and how do they do it?
It averages in price, if I'm honest. It's normally £330 for a 2-hour shoot. if it's sort of within a suitable distance, should I say. I do get requests to go to sort of deep south and up north, and it's a bit more for travel. But if I'm using a certain gym I'm used to using, I can sometimes, because I do a few in a day, so I drop the price and look after people in that way. Previous customers always get some money off. They get the 2-hour shoot, they get everything from the shoot, fully edited, always 100+ images, fully edited, high res. So I have a lot of clients who are like PTs and coaches, and they do the shoots. So they've got something to say, this is what I've done, this is how we work. And they get months out of those shoots of different promotional images and, Instagram posts, Facebook posts. So yeah,
So you only have to look at your back catalogue, mate. It speaks volumes for it. It speaks for itself, doesn't it? You've good friends of ours like Carl who doesn't want to go to anybody else because he knows you know him and how he wants to do it and all the rest. One of the best in the business. That goes without
it sounds like a lot of money, Phil, to some people. They think, oh wow, £300. But if I'm honest, the editing, I mean, the one I've just done, I spent all day and a day and a half of editing for one shoot, because every image has to be looked at. Sometimes people have got slight imperfection, whether not your fault with the tan, but some people do have patches where it's not been exfoliated, or spot, they've cut themselves shaving. It's all got to be sorted out, and it takes absolutely hours to edit one shoot. So the time for one shoot, you've got your 2-hour shoot, the drive time there to get there and back. I'm always there 30 or 40 minutes before the shoot time to set up, so I'm not using their shoot time. I'm going to pack down afterwards. So that's probably 3 to 3.5 hours just for that. Editing easily 6 to 10 hours plus for a photo shoot to be edited. So when you break it down, there's a lot of time goes into one person, so they look amazing, if you know what I mean.
Again, I think we know a lot of people bodybuilders don't want to go and bodybuild, get on the stage, go and do an NABBA show or whatever show. There's a lot these days just strictly want to come and do it for a photo shoot for a lot of good reasons. So
milestones,
you've got,
they've just changed the lifestyle. They're not all bodybuilders. A lot of my clients are not bodybuilders. They're not fitness competitors. The people who've changed their life, they've gone from being really unhappy with their life. They've lost a decent amount of weight. They look phenomenal in the gym clothes, and they have a gym shoot looking sporty and healthy. Job done. They get treated the same, but because of my experience, I can guide them all the way through the shoot. So they won't have a clue what to do, but I'll tell them and show them, and then bounce ideas about, and everyone goes away feeling great.
And that's the key, isn't it, mate? We do a lot. Our Vibe Ultra is our photo shoot tan. It's a salon tan. It's ultra dark. It's one of the darkest on the market, if not the darkest. All the top photographers like your good self generally ask people to go and get tanned, have a Black Magic Vibe Ultra, because it works for that reason. So we see all of these guys, different transformations, like lifestyle, whatever it is, and it's a great milestone. It's a great marker of, again, changing your life, getting where you want to be, and
absolutely
going. So
I think it's something to work on, and keep pushing for people, giving them the best.
And cost is irrelevant. You get what you pay for in life. You want a great shoot with great photographs. You get a great photographer.
I'm not the most expensive either, so that's all right. You know what I mean? I know people charge a lot more than me for gym shoots, but I'm happy with it. It's just balance, isn't it?
Of course it is. So with that, I suppose we're best. I'm going to take the kids swimming. That's what I'm going to go and do. Get this up.
Awesome. Nice to speak to you, Phil, as ever.
Always good to see you, pal. Again, book your photos. If you're doing the University UK, photo flex, just get in touch via any of the social channels, I would think, Lee.
Just Facebook, whatever.
That's it.
We'll see your wife and yourself at the Universe. We both got married this year.
And we just didn't even touch on that topic. I was going to get into that right from the start. How's married life treating you?
Married life's fantastic. How's your marriage life?
Living the dream, my friend, living the dream.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
On that. I'll catch up with you next week, mate. All the best.
All right, Phil. See you soon, buddy.
I'm just going to stop recording.